have a bunch of questions. I mean, like first, just talk about Chris really briefly. Why do you think he identified you as someone even who was a different sort of VC and thinker? Like, were you publishing stuff? Like, how did he know you were someone to call?
Yeah. Chris has a thesis that the best people for the job are the ones who kind of like raise their hand, through their actions before.
Yep.
And he was looking for somebody who kind of had the intersection of, at the time, it was obviously someone from sort of like the data background, somebody who had worked at startups before, somebody who had some venture experience. And he was also looking for somebody who had some consulting experience, because at the time, Signifyer did start as a company, right? And we actually had a book of business and a book of clients, and he was looking for somebody who could sort of help manage the portfolio of customers as he kind of focused more on raising the first fund. And it turns out, 10 years ago, if you look for the intersection of those things, it was a pretty short list, thankfully.
And what do you think about, I mean, this will maybe go into just being a venture investor in general, but also how important is the ability to pick talent towards the meaning to build a great company in general, right? So like, let's pretend that Signifyer, I mean, it was a company. I kind of would view it as a company. Yes, it's a venture capital firm, but like it's a business, right? And it's scaled from, I don't know what your first fund was, to billions of dollars now under management. Like, what are those qualities you even saw with Chris, where you're like, this is a guy who knows how to build, who's a great entrepreneur and knows how to build and pick talent, picking you as one of those talented people, to not overstate your qualities. But I mean, like, what are the things you think you saw or learned from him around picking talent?
Yeah. I would say that is, if I had to pick one superpower for Chris, it's a talent. And he actually his background is very much as like a talent scout. One of his first entrepreneurial startups was as sort of like a tech-enabled recruiting firm. And the whole notion was to like use referral networks kind of at scale, digitize them, and figure out kind of like who the best talent was. This kind of like predates is like Signifyer, like, I guess, version 1.0 in some ways. There's a few things that he taught me to look for, which I think translates on the founder side. One was how to kind of screen for raw horsepower, right? In this industry, you have to ramp up this sort of infinite learning curve across many different, very oftentimes like unrelated industries, from like, you could be taking a meeting in like a quantum computing company and like a consumer social app the next minute. And as a proxy, he looked for people who has excellence in sort of unrelated fields. Yeah. So for example, YY on our team is like, I think she's like a 6-time, Canadian national chess champion, but then also like, this crazy quant from Blackstone kind of thing. So a lot of like, demonstrated excellence at Incline. Mm-hmm. He's hired a lot of like Olympic level athletes like in the past, people who figure out kind of how to just get really good, new at something. And so I think that's one thing that he showed me, sort of how high the bar could be there. Yeah. He's also got a really good eye for people who are talent magnets themselves. This is actually something I feel like it probably doesn't pertain to like something I could work on more, but he's found a lot of people at Signifyer and a lot of the founders he backed who are just, who have sort of this level of charisma and magnetism that just gets amazing people, especially technical talent, to get to work with them. And I think he has a really strong eye for that sort of, that skill in particular.
Why do you think you're not able to like replicate that? Or why is it hard for a founder to maybe replicate that sort of work? Like the sort of talent magnet work?
I think there's probably a few things that go into it. One is there's a little level of just sort of inherent magnetism. You want to be kind of the person that people want to follow. There's certainly a level of, I think, won't take no for an answer, persistence. Like I think a lot of it, Chris is an unbelievable closer, when it comes to deals and hiring and so forth. And I think that the kinds of people he tends to back have similar characteristics. They're just sort of relentless, dogged.